Oral arguments in the Diddy trial are being held today, and there is a good chance that P. Diddy could be released as soon as today. TMZ's Harvey Levin breaks down what's happening in the courtroom.
There is a good chance that Diddy could be eating dinner at his home tonight, a free man. And that's because an appeals court is now hearing the review of the trial in which Diddy was convicted of violating the Mann Act. And his defense lawyers are making two arguments that could sway these judges and make them overturn the conviction. Let me explain both. So the first is that the defense says that the violation of the Mann Act is to prohibit the transportation of prostitutes across state lines, and it's typically for commercial purposes. That's where they've used it before. In this case, the defense is saying this is nothing more than kinky porn, and kinky porn is protected by the First Amendment. Now, that may sound crazy, but I'm going to read you something from their brief.
This is what I've been saying the whole time. How is porn legal? But what he did is illegal. And why weren't the other participants charged?
Listen to this. They say freak-offs and hotel nights were highly choreographed sexual performances involving the use of costumes, role play, and staged lighting, which were filmed so Combs and his girlfriends could watch this amateur pornography later. Pornography production and viewing of this sort is protected by the First Amendment and thus cannot constitutionally be prosecuted.
He is sitting in prison for crimes he was acquitted of and crimes he wasn't charged with. The judge was clearly biased towards Diddy the whole time. It was blatant, and he unjustly sentenced him to 50 months. You can like or dislike anyone you want, but the law is the law, and this was injustice.
So what they're saying is, look, if you want to use the Mann Act to prosecute people who are moving prostitutes across state lines for commercial transactions, which again is what it's usually used for, that's one thing. But here, there's no commercial purpose. Diddy lost money. He ended up paying the prostitutes. The films were never distributed to anybody. The defense is saying it was for his pleasure and the pleasure of people who may have been participating. So they're saying, look, this is like any porn. It could be OnlyFans. It could be anything like that. And all of that is constitutionally protected. The second thing they're arguing is that the sentence was totally out of whack, that Diddy got 50 months for violating the Mann Act. And typically, for Mann Act prosecutions, the average is around 15 months. And what the defense is saying is that the trial judge in this case considered all sorts of evidence that he shouldn't have, that the judge, even though Diddy was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking, and there was a lot of evidence presented about coercion and force, and the Cassie video was introduced into evidence. The defense is saying none of that should be considered because the Mann Act has nothing to do with that. But they're saying the judge's sentence was colored by all of those things, and the judge threw the book at Diddy when the judge should have just looked at the Mann Act violation and then sentenced appropriately. They're saying the appropriate sentence should have been around 15 months. Well, guess what? Diddy has already served 19 months. So, if either of those arguments fly, if the appellate court believes that this is constitutionally protected porn, or if the appellate court believes that the sentence was out of whack and 15 months is more appropriate, either one of those, Diddy is a free man.
Diddy wasn't charged with being a scumbag, ripping off artist, or DV. He beat the serious charges and should be free. What do you think? Should Diddy be released or should he serve his entire sentence? Was the judge wrong? Do you think Diddy will come home a changed man or is he still a shyster? Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the like button. Peace.